On this card, we have two big prospect versus prospect fights. Randy Costa taking on Adrian Yanez, and Maycee Barber. The nickname's the future. She wanted to become the youngest UFC champion, younger than Jon Jones. Slightly derailed are her plans with 2 losses in a row. She's taking on Miranda the Maverick. And for Miranda Maverick, Matt made a really good point. The UFC had a show at the end of 2020. And who was Jon Anik? Well, cat's out of the bag, but who was Jon Anik's big prospect that he talked about on that show?
He said Miranda Maverick quite possibly could be the second best women's flyweight in the world right now, only behind Valentina Shevchenko herself.
After one UFC performance, how crazy is that?
It's wild, and here's the thing. Miranda Maverick's UFC debut was against Liana Jojua, who is a good fighter, don't get me wrong, but it was wild that Jon Anik put that kind of a ceiling next to Maverick after the one fight. Now, exactly, let's break down that fight really quick. Miranda Maverick's one of these weird fighters where she's a genuine knockout threat at this weight class, and honestly, we should say that for both of these women, and that's why this fight is so exciting. It's not often we have a women's flyweight fight where both fighters could honestly win by knockout in the first, second, or third round, just win by finish in the first, second, or third round, and that's why this fight should be so good.
It's weird, too, because if you look at it from Miranda Maverick, the path to the UFC, there were some losses. She lost to Brogan Walker-Sanchez, a fighter that a lot of people have on their records, who was undefeated at the time, and Deanna Bennett, a tough, gritty veteran back in 2019. What does Maverick do at 4-2? Again, she's a very hype prospect at this point. She beats Heather Walker-Leahy. Oh, that Leahy. And then she is involved in Matt's favorite tournament, the Phoenix Series #2, the one-round fights. She beats Victoria Leonardo, who's now in the UFC. She beats Shayna Young, who's now in the UFC. She gets her revenge over Deanna Bennett. That's great. She finishes her. She beats Pearl Gonzalez. Boom, you're into the UFC. Off to the races. Beats Liana Jojua. Beats Jillian Robertson. And that's where this fight gets funky. Look at Miranda Maverick's Instagram, and other than the poses where she looks great physically, you know exactly what kind of shape she's going to show up to in her fights, she trains out of the house of Muay Thai. Now, the best thing that I love to see is when fighters decide, I'm going to make a little bit of a change. I'm going to work with somebody a little bit different for this fight. You go over to it, she's at the PI, she's training with Aspen Ladd, Andrea Lee, big names, but Matt, some of the names that I've also seen in some of these pictures, and I'm going to throw it up there on the screen, is a picture from a week ago. So glad I could have the Savage come train with me this week in preparation for my upcoming fight. They fought. They had a competitive fight. It was back and forth. There were opportunities for both, but Miranda Maverick with Dean Thomas and Jillian Robertson, I love to see that when you can all of a sudden, hey, I had success in the grappling. Jillian had a little bit of success too. I know how good of a striker I am. I think that's the perfect person to bring into a fight like this because you know Maycee Barber is going to bring those takedowns. You know Maycee Barber is going to bring the fire on the feet. I think Robertson's a great person to train with, and a lot of people might be down on Robertson right now. I think that's a great move.
I do it too, but here's the flip side of that. Maycee Barber is actually going to bring in a lot of the same strengths that Jillian Robertson has in the cage. Now, I know a lot of people think of Robertson more for her jiu-jitsu, but Robertson really does just shoot a lot of offensive takedowns. And if she gets them, great. If not, then we kind of see the limitations of her striking. Now, Maycee Barber does not have that issue. She's a fighter who, and I'm going to use this term, I always think about this, it's at the start of American Sniper when Bradley Cooper is about to hit the target. But there's a term in that movie that stuck with me because I really do think it applies to MMA. And it's aim big, miss big, aim small, miss small. And I really do think that that one term sums up this fight perfectly because Maycee Barber, although I do think the power does lie with Maycee Barber, she's the type of fighter who just swings wild with every single shot. And if she lands, that's great. But if you miss, you're leaving yourself wide open. What does Miranda Maverick do really well? She's a fighter who throws in combination, keeps things very smooth and very fast down the middle with her shots, and she is borderline surgical with her elbows, just like a Jojua's nose. That's where I do think this fight's going to come down to. I think Barber could have success on the outside when she is just trying to barrage with her big bombs, but I do think that as this fight gets more technical, when both these fighters do tire, just like what happened to Maycee Barber against Alexa Grasso, I don't think Miranda Maverick can fight on the back foot like Alexa Grasso can, but I think she can put together combinations in a very similar way to Grasso, and that's honestly kind of how I see the rhythm of this fight going.
When I look at this too, it's weird for Barber. She loses to Modafferi where she blows out her ACL. She takes a year off, fights Alexa Grasso. A lot of people thought that was a weird fight to put Barber in. I'm pretty sure we both had Barber. The odds were about split at that point. And you look at this one, listen, it's a long time off. It's about 5 months between fights. Maycee Barber's moved from VFS down to Team Alpha Male. I think one of her training partners is a perfect person for this fight too. It's Poppins. It's Cory McKenna. And that's another really good fighter to have in your corner, in your back pocket. I think it's a great comp for Maverick, though Poppins might be a little bit smaller. It still is a good one, Matt. When I have a look at the odds for this one, They opened and automatically corrected themselves. Maverick opened a plus 180 underdog. She's now a minus 147 favorite. It was just a... And then for Barber, if you want the comparable... Because it went up and down. I'm not a sound effects guy like that guy in... What was it?
It's like breaking
Was
celery.
it Police Academy? Was that the movie where the sound effect guy was in? I'm going to get corrected in the comments section. It's going to be an automatic... But look at it. For Barber, she opened a minus 210. She's now plus 121. If we have a look over on Tapology, it's not a surprise. I will push back. So 742 total votes, 76% Maverick, 77% by decision for the 24% that have Barber, 66 by decision, 24% by knockout. I do think that this fight is a lot closer than maybe those odds or the fans would suggest, because I think people are really down on Barber for the last 2 losses. She has a good opportunity here. I know for Maverick, she gains out in the grappling, but Maycee Barber is a very, very good wrestler. We've seen that so far from her in her young UFC career. Even go back to the Hannah Cifers fight. I'm on top. I'm finishing her. So it will be an interesting fight. What's your final take here?
I like Miranda Maverick in this fight, and honestly, I favor her cardio in this fight. The problem with Maycee Barber is that as she gets tired, she gets desperate when she rushes forward. Look at the Alexa Grasso fight. It's really the perfect microcosm of her entire career, because it's her walking forward, big bombs.
She does win the last round, though.
That's fine, but she does eat a lot of shots when she moves forward. My issue with Maycee Barber isn't with her striking, it's with the defense when she lets her own hands go. She's a fighter who does throw those big windmill-type hooks, and yes, when they land at this weight class, we've seen it happen before. Look at her fight with Jillian Robertson. Like, Jillian Robertson tries to strike with Maycee Barber. Barber hits her once, she's completely dazed, and then she just bombs on her up against the cage. If she is able to hit Maverick with a big shot early, I do think she could daze her and then have a little bit of success afterwards, but I really do favor the more crisp striking of Maverick in this matchup.
Barber's only going to get better. She just turned 23 for Maverick. She just turned, what, 24 3 weeks ago. So happy birthday to both of them. More so to Maverick because it's closer than to Barber, but I have a hard time with this one. I'm on the fence. I'm going Maverick because, again, it's not just that I like the upside. I like what I've seen in the cage. Again, she's really tricky. She's tough to hit. And when she's on the ground, sometimes she's in some of those 50-50 exchanges, which makes this one incredibly interesting. But when you line both of these fighters together, you look at the fact that Barber going to switch stances. Maverick out of the southpaw. She's a really tough fighter to take on. That McKenna connection could be good for Barber, so you let us know down below in the comments section. I'm ever so slightly going with Maverick, but I don't have the most confidence in it. We both have Maverick in this fight.
Really fun fight, though.
Eager to get your thoughts on this one as well. We got a great main card coming up, and it is headed off by 2 absolute legends right now. Sandhagen taking on Dillashaw. Really can't wait for it. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, as we always say. Let's get into it.